There comes a moment that every person who has ever loved a cat quietly dreads, the moment when the rhythm of its breath falters, when the house grows unnaturally still, and the small life that filled it with warmth begins to fade. In that silence, a question always rises in the heart. Where did it go? What happens to a cat in the first few moments after death? Does it know it has passed? Can it still feel the person who sat beside it through its final breaths? Edgar Cayce, the man known as the Sleeping Prophet, spoke about this with remarkable gentleness. He said that for animals, death is not a punishment or a mystery, but simply the continuation of life in another form. It is not an ending, not even a separation, but a smooth crossing from one state of awareness into another. According to Cayce, animals experience this passage far more easily than humans do. He explained that human beings carry the weight of memory, fear, and belief, which often cloud the moment of transition. Cats, on the other hand, live without that burden. They move through the world guided by instinct and trust, not by the endless thoughts that make us question and resist what is natural. In reading 5755-2, Cayce described death as the spirit becoming aware of itself again, and that statement applies perfectly to animals. For a cat, awareness does not vanish with the body, it expands, as though a veil has been lifted. In the first seconds after death, the cat's consciousness begins to detach from its physical shell. Cayce said that this separation is gentle, like mist rising from water at sunrise. There is no shock, no violence, no fear. The physical sensations that once tied the soul to the body dissolve instantly, along with pain, fatigue, and the frailty of age. What remains is pure awareness, light, clear, and unburdened. For the cat, this transition is not something to fight against because it has never learned to resist what is. In life, it surrendered itself completely to sleep, to hunger, to curiosity, to affection, to the flow of each day as it came. In death, that same trust allows it to let go easily, moving into the next state of being as naturally as breathing. Cayce often compared death to awakening. He said that what we call dying is, in truth, the soul remembering that it was never bound by the body to begin with. So when a cat takes its last breath, it is not falling into darkness, but opening its eyes to light that was always there, unseen until that moment. Its awareness widens, its senses sharpen in ways we can hardly imagine. It perceives not through eyes or ears, but through pure consciousness, instantly recognizing that it is free from all limitation. The transition that feels like loss to us is for the cat a return to wholeness, and in that moment it does not disappear. It simply becomes more itself than it has ever been. According to Cayce, the first moments after a cat passes are not filled with confusion or fear, but with clarity. Its awareness remains close to the physical plane, almost as if it lingers at the threshold, taking one last gentle look at the place it called home. It senses familiar scents, hears faint echoes of the voices it loved, and feels the residue of affection that still fills the room. But this isn't haunting or sorrowful. Cayce said that the newly freed consciousness often stays nearby out of love, not attachment, much like a friend who pauses at the door to glance back before stepping outside. The cat's awareness, now unbound by the body, can move effortlessly between spaces, seeing and sensing with a completeness that the physical world never allowed. Cayce's reading 262-86 describes this early stage as a soft awakening to harmony, a moment where the soul recognizes that the struggle is over. For cats, this realization comes almost immediately. Their senses are no longer dulled by illness or age. Their movement is effortless, their energy unbroken. The cat that could barely walk in its final days now feels itself springing forward with perfect strength. The one that lost its sight now perceives light in every direction, not through eyes, but through direct awareness. It is a kind of joy that Cayce called the natural response of spirit released from density. In these first hours, or perhaps what we would call days, the cat experiences its surroundings in a way that mirrors its nature, peaceful, curious, unafraid. Cayce explained that consciousness creates its environment, and because cats are creatures of comfort and balance, they awaken in a space that feels gentle and safe. It might resemble a garden bathed in golden light, or the familiar corners of the home they knew, recreated in subtle, luminous detail by the vibration of memory. The cat recognizes this instantly and feels at ease, because in this plane, everything responds to thought and emotion rather than physical form. This is why so many people report sensing their cat's presence in the hours after it passes. The soft weight on the bed, the faint sound of paws on the floor, or that peculiar feeling of being watched with affection. Cayce would say that this happens because the cat, still attuned to the person it loved, can shift its awareness between the spiritual and physical vibrations. It doesn't need to travel far. Thought itself bridges the distance. When you grieve, it feels your sorrow as energy. When you speak to it, even silently, it hears not words but the emotion behind them. In those early days, that connection is vivid, alive, and reciprocal. The cat, freed from its physical form, doesn't think in concepts like humans do. It feels in waves: love, peace, curiosity. And when it senses your pain, it instinctively responds with calm, sending a quiet wave of comfort, the same energy it once expressed through a gentle purr or the way it curled beside you in silence. Cayce often said that no soul, whether human or animal, crosses the boundary of death alone. In his readings, he described that the first awareness of the spiritual world is rarely solitude but recognition. The newly freed consciousness becomes aware of familiar presences, gentle energies, that seem to emerge from the very light surrounding it. For cats, those presences are almost always other animals. Sometimes they are companions that shared the same household years earlier. Sometimes they are animals that belong to the same family in other lifetimes. And sometimes they are souls who simply understand the passage and have come to welcome the new arrival. Cayce referred to them as guides of the lesser kingdoms, souls who have grown wise through service and affection. The reunion, he explained, is immediate and full of joy. The cat recognizes the others not by form but by energy, the way one might know a melody without hearing its notes. The sense of companionship is overwhelming in its warmth, and the feeling of being safe and understood returns instantly. For a being that spent its life attuned to subtle changes in tone, scent, and mood, this new world feels like perfection, everything alive with meaning and connection. There is no language, yet communication happens effortlessly. The exchange is made of feeling, not sound. It is love understood directly, without confusion or hesitation. In some readings, such as 2147-3, Cayce mentioned that animal souls are greeted not only by their kind, but also by human souls who carried deep love for animals during their earthly lives. These are people who in life tended to strays, nursed the injured, and loved without expectation. In the afterlife, such souls continue their compassion by serving as caretakers for animals who are newly arrived. A cat entering that realm is received with the same patience and affection it once knew on earth, often by a familiar presence. Perhaps an ancestor, perhaps a stranger, whose energy feels like home. Cayce described these beings as helpers who teach through presence, guiding the animal toward calm understanding of its new state. They don't lecture or instruct. They radiate peace until the cat remembers that peace is its natural state. This is how adjustment happens, not through explanation, but through energy. The cat's awareness quickly adapts to the rhythm of this plane, where movement happens through thought and where love itself forms the landscape. The first days in this world are filled with discovery. The cat explores with the same curiosity it showed in life, but now nothing threatens it, nothing can harm it. The sense of freedom is absolute, and yet there is still one thread that keeps drawing its attention: you. Cayce explained that animals who form deep emotional bonds often keep a portion of their awareness connected to those they loved on Earth. The cat may wander through that luminous environment, but at any moment, the thought of you brings your presence vividly before it, like a scent carried on the wind. In this way, love becomes both guide and compass, ensuring that the cat's journey never feels like loss, only a gentle continuation of what was always there between you. Cayce often emphasized that love itself is an energy that never loses its direction. Once it flows between two beings, it cannot be broken by time or distance. The connection between a cat and its human is not merely emotional habit, but a living field of vibration. After death, that field remains active, perhaps even stronger, because the barriers of the body have fallen away. The cat now perceives your thoughts and emotions directly, not as words or gestures, but as waves of feeling. It senses your grief as weight and darkness, your longing as color and warmth, your love as something luminous that it can rest within. In those first few days, this exchange continues almost constantly. Cayce explained that newly released consciousness often stays close to the earthly plane as it completes its adjustment. For a cat, this means that while part of its awareness explores the new realm, another part still moves through familiar spaces, the corners of the home, the bed where it slept, the chair where sunlight used to find it. You might notice moments of stillness that feel charged, or shadows that seem to hold a presence. You might feel the soft weight of something stepping beside you at night. These sensations, Cayce said, are not imagination. They are the natural consequence of two energies still vibrating in harmony. The cat feels your mourning. It recognizes the shape of your sadness the way it once recognized the tone of your voice. Its instinct, unchanged by death, is to comfort. In life, it did so by curling against you, or by watching quietly from a distance until you calmed. Now it does the same thing through energy, sending waves of peace, warmth, and reassurance. In the language of the spirit, this is the first act it performs after passing, to ease the heart that shared its life. Cayce suggested that during sleep or deep rest, communication between these two states becomes even easier. When you dream vividly of your cat soon after its death, when the dream feels so real that you wake up convinced it was there, he said it often is. In that altered state, your own consciousness reaches a frequency close to the plane where your cat now exists, allowing you to meet, even if for a moment. That is why such dreams often feel different from ordinary ones. They carry a quiet certainty, a peace that lingers long after waking. The cat, meanwhile, continues to adjust. Its awareness expands in both directions, toward the spiritual realm and toward the life it left behind. It does not experience confusion or pain in this duality. Instead, it observes, learns, and balances. Cayce's view was that animals understand transition through feeling, not through thought. They don't ask what happened to them. They simply sense that they are safe. And as they sense that their human is beginning to find peace, they start to move more fully into their new life, reassured that the love they gave has done what it was meant to do, to heal. Cayce explained that even though the body dies, the impressions of a life lived remain for a while. Every creature carries an energetic memory, not thoughts as we know them, but sensations, patterns, and emotional traces of what was felt most strongly in life. For a cat, those traces might be the memory of comfort and warmth, or of fear, illness, and struggle. When it crosses into the spiritual plane, these impressions begin to soften. Healing begins almost immediately, but it is not mechanical. It unfolds naturally, guided by love. In reading 262-86, Cayce described this process as the soul's realignment to the vibration of harmony. In simpler words, the cat's consciousness starts to release the density of its former life, the fatigue, the stiffness, the echo of pain. Even memories of abandonment or illness all begin to dissolve as its awareness absorbs the higher frequency of peace. Nothing is forced. Healing happens gently, through the presence of other beings who radiate calm and compassion. They do not speak, they do not instruct, they simply are. And through their being, they communicate a truth the cat instantly understands, that it is safe, that it is loved, and that nothing it endured was without meaning. This is why Cayce said that animals recover from death more quickly than humans. They carry no guilt, no unfinished ambitions, no tangled attachments to possessions or reputation. Their energy is simple and pure, and because of that, their return to balance is swift. The light that permeates the plane they now inhabit acts almost like a balm, washing away every trace of fear or strain. The cat's spirit, which may have dimmed in its last days of illness, brightens again. It begins to move more freely, with an ease that feels familiar and new at once. The same graceful curiosity it had in life, now unbound by any physical limit. Cayce believed that this stage is not only restorative, but also expansive. The animal's awareness begins to widen, realizing that existence was never confined to a single lifetime or a single form. It senses a vast continuity, a rhythm to which all living things belong. This recognition doesn't frighten or overwhelm it. Cats have always lived close to mystery. They feel rather than question, and this makes them naturally receptive to understanding without words. In this stage, the cat simply knows, not through intellect but through presence, that it is part of something larger and endlessly loving. As the days, or what we might call weeks, pass, the cat's energy grows lighter, more radiant. The marks of its former physical life fade, leaving only a deep calm. It begins to rest in that calm as if it were lying again in a warm patch of sunlight, perfectly content. And when it looks back toward the world it left, it no longer feels pain or longing, only gratitude, a soft awareness of having been loved, and of still being connected to that love in ways that neither time nor death can erase. As the healing settles and peace becomes its new rhythm, the cat begins to move deeper into what Cayce called the natural state of the soul. In his readings, he often said that every living being, from human to animal, carries a spark of the same creative force. When that spark is freed from matter, it naturally seeks harmony with the whole. For a cat, this harmony feels like returning home, not to a place, but to a presence. The spiritual world does not look like the earth it left behind, yet it feels strangely familiar. Every sound, every color, every vibration is alive with a warmth that speaks directly to the heart. The cat recognizes this world not as something new, but as something it has always known. Cayce explained that in this phase, the animal's awareness no longer moves between two planes. It is fully adjusted to the finer vibration of spirit and no longer needs to visit the physical environment often. Yet the bond it shares with the one who loved it remains active. That connection is not a line that fades with time. It is a pulse, an echo that vibrates through the same universal field. When you think of your cat with love, that thought reaches it instantly, not as a memory but as light. Cayce compared this to a tuning fork resonating with another at a distance. No delay, no separation, only immediate response. Many people describe moments long after their cat has passed. Sudden calm in the midst of grief, a sense of warmth in an empty room, or a dream so vivid it feels like a visitation. Cayce would have said that these are not coincidences. They are the natural language of continued relationship, love translated into the medium of energy. The cat, now resting in full awareness, still knows you. It still recognizes your essence and responds to it in the quiet ways available to it. He also spoke about the evolution of animal souls, describing them as travelers on their own long journey through creation. Some, he said, return to physical life when their presence is needed again, drawn by bonds of affection or shared experience. This is why some people feel an uncanny familiarity when they meet a new cat, as if an old friend has simply changed its coat. Cayce believed that love, when strong and selfless, becomes a spiritual link across lifetimes, allowing souls, human and animal alike, to find each other again when the time is right. In this final stage, the cat's consciousness becomes peaceful and whole. It no longer carries the faint echo of pain or confusion, only the clear awareness of being part of something eternal. If it could speak, it would say that nothing is lost. The warmth that once passed between your hand and its fur, the quiet companionship shared in long afternoons, the unspoken understanding, all of it remains, transformed into a quiet radiance that endures. For the cat, death has become a return to light, and for those it loved, that light is the promise that every bond formed in kindness will one day be complete again. Cayce once said that love is the force that keeps creation in motion, the thread that connects all consciousness back to its source. When he spoke of animals, he reminded his followers that they are part of that same great pattern, not lesser, not separate, but woven from the same divine fabric. In that sense, when your cat dies, it does not vanish into some unreachable elsewhere. It simply steps into a wider circle, one that you too are already part of, though you may not yet see it. If you have ever woken in the middle of the night and felt the impression of soft weight at your feet, or sensed a familiar gaze from the corner of a quiet room, know that these things are not illusions of longing. According to Cayce, the veil between the physical and the spiritual is thinner than most believe, and love has a way of keeping doors open between the two. In the first days after death, your cat may visit often, not because it cannot move on, but because it wants to reassure you that it already has. Those moments of peace that arrive unexpectedly amid grief, the strange calm that softens the ache in your chest, are part of that communication. They are its way of saying, "I am here and I am well." Cayce also taught that our response to loss matters. When we remain trapped in pain, that sorrow acts like gravity, holding both souls in the orbit of grief. But when we turn that sorrow into gratitude, we release each other into freedom. To let your cat go with love is not to end your connection. It is to allow it to evolve into something purer and lighter. Grief, when transmuted by understanding, becomes the bridge between worlds. You can still speak to your cat, not with words, but with the same quiet love you always shared. It will feel it. It always has. In time, the cat's presence fades from the physical space, but not from your life. The bond between you now exists as energy, subtle, invisible, but indestructible. Cayce described this as the law of return, the idea that every genuine bond of love finds completion. Perhaps it will come as a dream, perhaps as a new cat whose mannerisms feel uncannily familiar, perhaps only when your own journey through the physical world is done. However it unfolds, reunion is certain, because the soul knows its way back to what it loves. And so when you think of your cat, imagine it not as gone, but as free, resting in a garden of light, untroubled, whole, and still aware of you. Its journey through the first days after death is gentle, guided, and full of love. The same light that now surrounds it will one day welcome you too. Cayce's words remind us that life does not end where our eyes stop seeing, and that no act of love is ever wasted. So tonight, when the house grows quiet and you find yourself missing the sound of paws against the floor, remember this: nothing loved is ever lost. Somewhere, just beyond your sight, that small soul still walks in peace, its purr carried in the current of eternity, its heart still beating in rhythm with yours.